Caitlin Clark sends a clear message to one Stephanie White. Stephanie, it's about time you decided to stick up for your players. I was getting tired of getting scratched, clawed, and grabbed all game long, every game. It's about time you decided to say something to the referees. Stephanie White, a few minutes prior to that, ignoring Caitlin Clark's double-double, ignoring the engine that makes this thing go. AB doesn't drop 30 without CC 22. CC drops 30 because she's CC.
She has already made her decision. Not publicly, not in a press conference, not through a dramatic social media post or a leaked conversation from someone inside the organization. Quietly, privately, the way Caitlin Clark seems to handle the things that matter most. And according to this narrative, the decision is simple. When the season ends, she is done with the Indiana Fever. Not frustrated, not negotiating, not waiting to see if things change. Just done.
Hit a game winner to save you. Couldn't talk about it. The girl had a 32-point double-double alongside Aaliyah Boston, the first time that's ever happened for teammates in WNBA history. You didn't mention her. She just had 25 and 5, and she should have had 25 and 15 assists, but Aaliyah Boston couldn't make a layup. Lexi Hall's missing layups, Monique Billings missing layups, Kelsey Mitchell missing everything. And all you say is, hey, good job on the ATO. Good job, C. What?
And the moment you understand that, the moment it starts to feel real instead of just another rumor, everything that happened this season begins to make a different kind of sense. Every sideline exchange that went viral, every press conference where someone else got the headline, every possession designed for her that somehow ended with the ball in someone else's hands, every moment this organization looked at the most important player in modern women's basketball and treated her like a brand to manage instead of a superstar to build around. It all starts to connect. It all starts to make sense. And eventually, when enough of those moments pile up, what once looked like isolated incidents begins to feel like a pattern. A pattern that becomes impossible to ignore and even harder to excuse. At some point, repeated disrespect stops being something you explain away and becomes a reason to leave. Caitlin Clark appears to have reached that point, and if that is true, Indiana has nobody to blame but itself.
Caitlin Clark needs to do what's in the best interest for Caitlin Clark. Too much has happened in her 3 years as an Indiana Fever. Too much has happened since her rookie year. Nobody's acknowledging what Caitlin Clark has done for the league. Everybody's dismissing her. Every single time, somebody gets asked a question like, who would you rather start a franchise with? You get dumbass coaches answering bullshit-ass answers like Paige Beckers. Hype is always about how, Caitlin Clark's okay, but she's not that great because anybody off the street that can dribble a basketball can basically do whatever Caitlin Clark is doing. Caitlin Clark is literally out here destroying and annihilating records in a fifth of the time. And every single time, this league wants to dismiss and denigrate everything she's doing. And Stephanie White
here
is
is
part
what
of that.
this franchise never fully understood. And honestly, it is surprising they missed it when the evidence has been right in front of them for the past 2 years. Caitlin Clark never needed the Indiana Fever nearly as much as the Indiana Fever needed her. Before her arrival, the franchise struggled to capture attention. Crowds were smaller, broadcasts attracted limited interest, and the team operated largely outside the national sports spotlight. Then Clark arrived, and everything changed. Suddenly arenas were packed, television ratings surged, and the Fever became one of the most talked about teams in professional sports. She did not step into an already thriving situation. She became the reason people started paying attention. That is the reality this organization seemed to overlook, and it may have been their biggest mistake of all.
Each of the 11 largest WNBA audiences in the past 25 years have involved Caitlin Clark. One more time. Rewind. Each of the 11 largest WNBA audiences in the past 25 years have all involved Caitlin Clark in some way, shape, or form. 9 Fever games, the draft, and the All-Star game. Look at these numbers. Look at this. 3.4, 2.7, 2.5, 2.5, 2.4, 2.4, 2.3. She is the need.
All 11 of the largest WNBA audiences in the last 25 years have one thing in common. Caitlin Clark's name is attached to them. Every single one. She transformed the Indiana Fever from a regional franchise into a national attraction, turning regular season games into primetime television events that drew millions of viewers. She brought unprecedented attention to the league while playing in a system that often seemed ill-suited to her strengths. Even under a coach who openly admitted the offense was not built around her, and with a front office that exercised her contract option without fully embracing her as the centerpiece of the organization, Clark continued to elevate the franchise. Despite everything she delivered, she was never consistently treated like the most important figure in the building. That is not simply unfortunate timing or bad luck. It is a decision. And it may be the very decision that ends up costing the franchise more than it ever imagined.
So when my neighbor comes up to me and tells me that he's so frustrated he's yelling at the TV because he wants Caitlin to shoot more, and you see social media, of course you do, and we all do, and we see frustration if Caitlin doesn't have the ball or if something goes wrong or if the team doesn't play well in the fourth quarter, all those things that happen in sports. What's your answer to those fans? I don't know that I really have an answer for the fans. I think, I have to answer to our team, and our franchise. And we're trying to win ball games. We're not trying to appease the masses.
The disrespect was never about one single moment. That is where so many people get this story wrong when they try to reduce it to one incident, one press conference, or one questionable play call late in a game. The real issue was the environment. It was the culture that existed inside the organization. Day after day, the reality seemed to be that Caitlin Clark was the franchise's most valuable asset, yet the people making decisions rarely treated her that way. Stephanie White stood in front of cameras and made it clear that the team would run her system, not Clark's. A slower, methodical style built around half-court possessions and deliberate pacing rather than the fast breaks, quick reads, deep-range shooting, and explosive creativity that made Clark a star in the first place. The qualities that draw fans in and make people stop what they are doing to watch were often minimized in favor of a different approach. And the message was delivered clearly, without hesitation or qualification. It was her system, not Clark's, and there was no indication that was going to change.
Good job of finding a way. Okay, really good job of finding a way. We started to expand that fist and then we came back together. All right, that was really good stuff. Now we know we got a lot of stuff we got to work on, right? We know that. But being able to come away and withstand what we withstood in that run and to be able to pull together, get some key stops, shot C. Yeah, hell yeah. Great pass, It wasn't pretty, okay? It wasn't pretty. We still got room for growth, a lot of room for growth, but great job getting a W on the road.
And the reality about a culture of disrespect is that it reveals itself everywhere. Not only in the big moments that generate headlines or become talking points, but also in the small moments that most people never notice. The moments that never make highlight packages or post-game discussions. It shows up in the way a player is discussed publicly compared to how she is treated behind closed doors. It shows up in how credit is shared after a major victory and how trust is given when the game is on the line, and someone has to decide who gets the ball in the biggest moments. For the past 2 years, many critics have pointed to the same pattern within the Indiana Fever organization. Time and again, Caitlin Clark delivers something remarkable, and somehow the conversation quickly shifts in another direction.
2.5 million viewers for Saturday's primetime showdown between the Fever and the Liberty, the most watched WNBA game of the season. It peaked with more than 3 million viewers. This is a massive number, folks. 2.5 with the new ratings, with the old ratings, a huge number. This is better than the season opener between the Indiana Fever and the Dallas Wings, and this is better than about a week prior between the Dallas Wings and the New York Liberty. 1.3 million, making it the second most watched of the season. And then here comes Caitlin Clark against that same New York Liberty team, giving you an extra 1.2 million viewers.
Now let us talk about the numbers, because this is where the conversation moves beyond emotion and into something far more difficult to argue against. The math tells its own story, and it is not a comfortable one for Indiana. More than 2.5 million people tuned in to watch the Indiana Fever face the New York Liberty on a regular season Saturday broadcast on CBS, with the audience climbing past 3 million viewers at its peak. That is not just a strong ratings performance. It is the kind of attention that turns a sporting event into a cultural moment. Audiences of that size do not happen by accident. They are usually the result of years of planning, promotion, and perfect timing. Yet this happened naturally. When comparing similar situations involving the same franchise, the differences in viewership become difficult to ignore. Even after accounting for changes in opponents, networks, and circumstances, the pattern continues to point in the same direction. For 2 years, the market has been delivering the same answer over and over again. The greater the focus on Caitlin Clark, the greater the audience. Time after time, the result remains remarkably consistent.
Then you add in Kelsey, who had already been here, and she had a quiet 19, right? It can make for some really special things, and we've got growth opportunities. And there's no doubt about it. But I'm proud of this group, and those two certainly put us on their shoulders tonight. And I thought Mai was great. I thought Mai came in and was outstanding as well.
And yet, despite all of that, what happened afterward raised even more questions. Following a game in which Caitlin Clark recorded 32 points and 10 assists, tying a franchise record for 30-point double-doubles, and helping make WNBA history alongside Aaliyah Boston as the first teammates to each post a 30-point double-double in the same game, Stephanie White stepped into the post-game press conference and chose to begin by highlighting Kelsey Mitchell. Mitchell's 19-point performance was certainly valuable and would be considered a strong contribution on most nights, but it was not the defining story of this particular game. Clark tied a franchise great, made history, and carried the team through an overtime battle while continuing to operate within a system many believe does not fully maximize her strengths. Yet the spotlight was directed elsewhere. Whether intentional or not, moments like that leave an impression. They reveal priorities, philosophies, and perspectives in ways that statistics alone never can. And it is hard to believe that Caitlin Clark did not notice every second of it.
Talk more about Kelsey Mitchell and Sophie Cunningham and Monique Billings. Wait a minute. Listen to it one more time.
We have 5 in double figures. That's huge. That's huge. 25 points off of turnovers. Coming out of the timeout and the ATOC. Great job. Great job. Look, we know that we've still got room for improvement.
That's it?
Every day, we are taking steps forward. And that is the most important thing. Every day, we're getting better. Okay? I'm proud of y'all. Good job.
For what, bro? That's it? That's all you had to say about Caitlin Clark? You talk more about Monique Billings, Sophie Cunningham, and everybody else. Bro, this is nuts.
Which brings us to overtime, because this is where the tension became impossible to ignore. What had previously felt like background frustration suddenly moved to the center of the story. In the biggest moments of the game, with everything hanging in the balance, the expectation was that the ball would find Caitlin Clark. After all, she had spent the entire night making history, delivering in clutch situations, and proving once again why she is viewed as the franchise cornerstone. The play was initially designed around her, reflecting the trust that 2 years of late-game performances should have earned. Yet when the decisive moment arrived, the action ultimately moved in a different direction. It was a critical possession in a critical game, and the opportunity slipped away from the player who had carried so much of the burden throughout the night. When the play failed to produce the desired result, Clark was left to absorb more than just a missed chance. She had to process the decision itself, the message behind it, and what it may have revealed about the level of trust placed in her when the outcome mattered most.
The energy is low, so you have to go out there and kind of be the aggressor and bring the energy up. But when they already have it, you just got to, slide right in and don't let the game fall out.
You've been balling lately. And your attitude has been a lot better. I love that for you. Over the past 3 games, you hit a game winner. Now your celebration was a little, we got to work on that celebration. But then the game after that, you turn around and drop 32 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists, 7 rebounds. Almost had a triple-dub. Almost had a triple-dub. Then you bounce back today. Well, not bounce back, because you came back today with a 25-piece. With a 25-piece. That's what I'm talking about.
And this is where the story becomes genuinely difficult to ignore. Caitlin Clark has never publicly complained about any of it. She has remained measured, professional, and consistently focused on the team, the process, and the goal of winning. Her composure has been remarkable, especially for a player carrying the level of attention and expectation that follows her everywhere. She rarely reacts, rarely criticizes, and rarely allows frustration to become part of the public conversation. But sometimes actions and patterns speak louder than words ever could. Over the last 2 years, the evidence has been visible to anyone paying attention. Clark has been asked to operate within a system that many believe does not fully maximize her unique strengths, yet she continues to break records, create historic moments, and elevate the franchise on a nightly basis. She keeps showing up, keeps producing, and keeps delivering results regardless of the circumstances. That level of professionalism is impressive, but it can also signal something deeper. Often, when a competitor with that much discipline stops publicly reacting to challenges, it is not because the concerns have disappeared. It may simply mean the focus has shifted from changing the situation to quietly considering what comes next.
Know if Caitlin staying with the Indiana Fever makes sense. It's also something where I think if this were an NBA franchise, this was an NBA organization, people would be fired by now. This is the face of the league, your franchise player, your star player who's never had injuries. People would be fired by now. People would be fired expeditiously.
She ain't lying. We just seen it happen in Dallas with Jason Kidd. They are not about to waste Cooper Flagg's time. They not about to waste not even one season of his career, because every year, every game is very important. And in the WNBA, basketball comes last. That's what it really seems like.
And the possibility of an exit is what makes this situation impossible to ignore. Caitlin Clark remains under contract through the 2027 season after Indiana exercised her 4th-year option, but being under contract is not always the same thing as feeling fully committed to an organization. As the end of that deal approaches, she will enter a league that is expanding, attracting more attention, and creating new opportunities across the landscape of women's basketball. Every franchise is watching closely, evaluating every headline, every post-game comment, every coaching decision, and every moment that has shaped the story. They understand exactly what a player of Clark's stature could mean for their future. The idea of placing her in a system built specifically around her strengths, her pace, and her unique style of play is something many organizations would eagerly embrace. Indiana may hold the right to match future offers, but retaining a player requires more than contractual leverage. It requires trust, belief, and a sense of partnership. And that question, more than any contract detail, remains at the center of the conversation surrounding Clark's future.
She did not mention Caitlin Clark at all. So you mentioned Aaliyah Boston, career high, congratulations, good job. She was great last night, 34 points and 12 rebounds. However, Caitlin Clark also tied Tamika Catchings, the best player in Fever history. She just tied her for the most 30 and 10 games. And you don't want to give her any props. You don't want to acknowledge her. You don't want to. Actually, she has the most in WNBA history, the most 2010 games. I mean, she continuously adding history. And Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark are the first players in WNBA history to have a double-double. Both of them had double-double, so they're the first players to do it and have 30 points. So why not acknowledge Caitlin Clark? Why not?
Here is what the Indiana Fever front office needs to seriously think about. Not the loss to New York, not a single overtime possession, and not one isolated moment that happened during the season. The real issue is the bigger picture, the one that millions of viewers made impossible to ignore on a Saturday night. Those fans were not tuning in because of a coaching system, a defensive strategy, or a carefully designed half-court offense. They were tuning in because every time Caitlin Clark steps onto the floor, there is a feeling that something special could happen. That feeling cannot be manufactured by a franchise, a logo, or a front office. It comes from the player herself. It always has. The Indiana Fever looked at record-breaking audiences, historic ratings, and a level of attention rarely seen in women's basketball. They looked at a player who has transformed interest in the sport and made people feel like every game matters. Yet somehow, they still struggled to make her feel fully valued. That is bigger than basketball. It is a leadership issue. And leadership mistakes of this magnitude rarely disappear when the season ends. They tend to leave consequences that last much longer.
Caitlin Clark fan, prepare yourself. You better go find you a new team next season because she's getting traded. This media blitz has been insane. For the past 2 to 3 weeks, they found every single way from the media to attack her as a person and as a basketball player. And to be honest, a lot of these media folks are connected to the Fever front office and to Stephanie White. So what do you think is actually happening? Have you seen the Fever come out, to defend their star player? Maybe it's because they don't believe she's a star player. Maybe they think she's a gimmick. Maybe she thinks she's just here to drive ticket sales and merchandise sales. And the true star player is the person that they gave the Supermax to. I like to call her a zero gravity. So prepare yourself. This summer, or not this summer, but this offseason, it's going to get nasty. And she's most likely getting traded. And it's going to be what's best.
There comes a point when a player stops trying to change the environment around them and begins simply learning how to live within it. It is not a dramatic moment, and it rarely announces itself. Instead, it happens quietly, almost invisibly, when a competitor stops searching for approval from the outside and starts relying only on their own standards and expectations. If you have watched Caitlin Clark closely this season, you can understand why some people feel that shift may have already happened. It appears in the way she carries herself after games, in the calm and measured way she moves through the spotlight without seeking attention or validation. There is no performance, no message for the cameras, just the look of an athlete processing everything in real time. Throughout her time with the franchise, she has continued to deliver record-breaking performances, historic moments, and unprecedented attention for the organization. What many believe she wanted in return was a clear sense of trust, belief, and a long-term vision built around her strengths and potential. Whether that feeling has fully existed is a question only she can answer. As the season moves forward, however, there is a growing sense that her focus is no longer on changing perceptions, but on continuing her journey. The expression she carries is not one of frustration or anger. It looks more like the confidence of someone who has already made peace with whatever comes next.